I'm Debbie Sigris. Welcome to our online people. Thank you for being here. We're grateful to see you.
I'm glad you're here, oh, so glad you're here. The fellowship is sweeter, just knowing you're near. It's so good to see you, I hope that it's clear. Everyone loves you, we're so glad you're here. Come on, y'all. I'm glad you're here, yeah, so glad you're here. The fellowship is sweeter, just knowing you're near. It's so good to see you, I hope that it's clear. Everyone loves you, we're so glad you're here. Yes, everyone loves you, we're so glad you're here.
Let's greet each other.
Greet each other with a handshake or a hug.
That's right. Our wonderful Joni. Sorry, Joni. Will bring us our lesson for today.
We're looking at what it means to invite the holy even more deeply and fully into our lives here. So that's what we're up to this morning. And I got more to it than that, but it's true. So I've never started a a talk with a joke. So I'm going to go ahead and do that today. Some of you know that people know, if you're a friend on Facebook, that I do a Sunday post every Sunday.
Quite humorous.
Irreverent. Perhaps offensive sometimes. I like to poke around in that way. Just get us talking. So today's Sunday, happy Sunday joke is, so a cop pulls a woman over and he says, "Lady, what's in the bottle?" And the lady says, "Just some water." And he said, "Ma'am, that's wine." And the lady says, "Oh my God, Jesus did it again."
Good one.
Yeah. It also has nothing to do with what I'm talking about today. Well, other than Jesus and the holy and, maybe some wine. I could maybe talk about that a little bit today. So spiritual direction was this thing that I was unaware of when I entered seminary about 4 years ago. Who actually has been in or knows what spiritual direction is? Great. Okay, Tammy does. So the rest of you are, and I promise not. I promise not to make this a promotion for the spiritual direction program for Unity Worldwide Ministries, but I do happen to be the program coordinator for that. For that department, if you will. It's very new. So when I entered seminary, I entered under the guise that Spirit had led me, and Spirit does still lead me toward healthcare chaplaincy. And 4 years later, I'm the spiritual director for direction program coordinator for Unity Worldwide Ministry. So we know how Spirit works. I came into seminary and I thought, who are the cool kids sitting on that side of the room? And discovered that they were in seminary alongside me in spiritual formation for spiritual direction. And spiritual direction, so I had to discover what it was. All of us in seminary were required at some point in this particular program to be in spiritual direction for at least 6 months. And it turned out to be an extraordinary shift for me in my life. So what is it? What is it? So it is, we call it spiritual companioning now because direction seems it's a misnomer, but it's the best that we have for it.
Seems bossy.
And it's bossy, right? But the truth is what it is that it's spiritual direction explores our yearnings and longings in a way that reveals and dissolves our obstacles to spiritually flourishing. Now, the acclaimed Dutch priest and author and spiritual director Henry Nouwen tells us that the whole purpose of spiritual direction is to penetrate beneath the surface of a man's life, or a woman's, by the way, to get behind or anyone. Let's just say anyone, yeah. Non-binary. Yeah. It was ancient writing here, 1970, something like that. Now, the whole purpose of spiritual direction is to penetrate beneath the surface of a person's life, to get behind the facade of conventional gestures and attitudes which a person presents to the world, and to bring out our spiritual freedom. This goal of spiritual direction is spiritual formation, the ever-increasing capacity to live a spiritual life from the heart A spiritual life cannot be formed without discipline, practice, and accountability. There are many spiritual disciplines, almost anything, that regularly ask us to slow down and order our time, our desires, and our thoughts to counteract selfishness, impulsiveness, or, this is a big one for me, hurried fogginess of mind.
Wow.
Anything that does that can be a spiritual discipline. And so today, we're going to explore a few ways to slow ourselves down and help out with that hurried fogginess of our minds. This is one of the things that we do a lot in spiritual direction. So spiritual direction is practiced across faith and religious traditions, from the ancient Greeks who were interested in self-awareness and morality, being a good person, to progressive Christians. Spiritual direction has been around for thousands of years. But most people point to the desert mothers and fathers. Are we familiar with the desert? Okay, so the desert mothers and fathers are most often attributed to spiritual direction because they felt that the only way to be a true disciple of Jesus was to turn away from the distraction of the world and give up their worldly possessions, and then sit in practice and silence and unceasing prayer. So they are the originators of spiritual direction. So as word got out about them, people often sought to be with them, to get guidance from them. And in this scenario, younger monks would go to older monks, and they demonstrated that experience of conquering thoughts that disturbed the peace of the soul. Not that anything can disturb the peace of your soul, but it can create, our ego can create those barriers, of course. So this became spiritual mentorship, and that's universal in nature. Catholics seem to have marketed, Catholics and Episcopalians seem to have marketed spiritual direction in the contemporary world a little better than the rest of us. But there are schools for certifying spiritual directors all over the place, from Baptists to Unitarians, and now even Unitics. So, and it is practiced all over. It is, there Judaism, Islam, Sufism, even more than that. And we're called companions and elders and guides and teachers and masters and friends, anamkaras, gurus, hashpanas, mashpias, and murshids. So across the spectrum, spiritual direction, by any other name, is all those things. It's just deepening that awareness of the holy in our lives and releasing the barriers we have to having that experience of spiritual joy. So this practice of journeying with others as they conquer thoughts that disturb the soul is at the art of companioning one another as we reconcile our spiritual values with the external world. I mean, that's the key here. That's what we're all sitting right here right now for, is to close that gap on our spiritual values with the external world. So we spiritual directors serve as, this is the easiest way I think to describe it, we serve as Sherpas who train and travel the terrain of our own spirituality so we can guide others on theirs. It's pretty simple. But why is that important to unity? And why is it important right now? Why is it important anywhere right now? So we're in a time, actually we've seen an uptick in folks who want spiritual direction because we're trying to make meaning in a really different way right now than we have had to since, I would say, the 60s, probably. There's a whole new generation of folks who are looking to make meaning. And those people don't have to be religious. We're all spiritual. 70% of the people in the world have experienced some kind of transcendental experience, but they have nowhere to put that. We have some place to put that, and spiritual direction assists us in being able to do that. So there are uncertain social conditions. COVID has us wondering about our mortality more than usual. So spiritual direction is a great way to look at that. So it helps us to regularly and accountably focus on what's important and is greater than all other circumstances, right? That's God. God is greater than the golden key. Aiming all of that at God and allowing God to take care of that. And a spiritual director is just someone who is dedicated to our spiritual growth, who holds us accountable to those opportunities. So as we look more at this, spiritual direction assists us in becoming more aware of the holy in our daily lives. It takes our focus off the circumstantial. It helps us reflect on the awareness and deepen our relationship with God, and it discerns where God is leading so that we can share our spiritual gifts with the world. So, Joni, how does this apply to unity? Why are we naming it? What's your point? Why is this in a Sunday service at Unity? First, if you recall from Rick's talk that was based on Shad's talk, the principles. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but they were reversed. So if those of you, we're going to do a real quick recap here. So the steps, that's the steps. They're steps when you reverse them. They're principles when they're this way. So 1, God is absolute good and everywhere present. 2, since humans are made in the image of God, they have a spark of divinity within them, and therefore we are inherently good as well. 3, our thoughts create our experiences. This is an important one in spiritual direction. We create our experiences through the activity of our thinking. Number 4, prayer is creative thinking that heightens the connection with God. And it therefore brings wisdom and healing and prosperity and everything good. Number 5, action is needed. Knowing and understanding these laws of life, also called truth, is not enough. We must live the truth that we know. So let's flip them in reverse order. If we flip them and work them in this way, we can see how spiritual direction can become a tool for strengthening our individual experiences of the spiritual. And we can have that experience of spiritual freedom. All right, so first, in this scenario, 5 is 1. Action is needed. So if we can commit to the work of forming ourselves with each other and with someone whose sole purpose is to get behind those facades, then we can experience that spiritual freedom. Where is God leading us where is God leading me as an individual? Where is God leading you as an individual? Where is God leading you as a couple? Where is God leading you as a family? Where is God leading us as a community, as a spiritual community? Where is God leading Unity Heart of Austin? That's at the root of spiritual direction. So, first step, action is needed. So commit to exploring what that is. Prayer and meditation. That's absolutely needed, and that is what is at the heart of spiritual direction. We create our experiences through that thinking. Spiritual direction is an opportunity to examine our thinking through these contemplative practices that reveal deeper opportunities for the sacred in our lives. We're about to do one. Is our thinking in alignment with our spiritual values? Again, how do we go about discerning where God is leading us, and more importantly, remove those barriers to spiritually flourishing? So if you'll indulge me, we're going to do a couple of these today. If you'll indulge me and settle in again for a moment. So just take a few cleansing breaths. We're going to look at where God's love has been active for you. Think about your day yesterday. Where was God's love active for you yesterday? What did God show you about your day yesterday? Where might God have been leading you yesterday? What was important to God from your day yesterday? And finally, was there anything within you that may have been resisting where God was leading you yesterday? And if so, I invite you to take this opportunity to release that barrier, that resistance. I invite you to release that in this moment. And when you're ready, just bring yourself back into the presence of the room and the people beside you. Those of us who have been on this short little journey with you, and open your eyes when you're ready. We might talk about this in conversation, can't we? So now we're down to the first and second, or second and first principles. We are all inherently the Christ, made from the essence of a good God. So when we have done our work, we have this opportunity to see ourselves and others as the Christ. And we become more spiritually intelligent. We've heard of a spiritual quotient, just like IQ and an emotional quotient. This is an opportunity to become more spiritually intelligent. It improves our spiritual quotient, which is really at the root of don't we know this in Unity? That's what's at the root of IQ and EQ, is your spiritual quotient. It makes us more self-aware. We can practice humility, learn to reframe things, and then by removing those barriers that assist us in our spiritual intelligence, it helps us reach the truth that God is indeed good and we are all one. We get a stronger sense of purpose. We deepen our ability to experience compassion for others, and we celebrate diversity and come to experience our oneness with God and the people we're in relationship with and everyone around us. So, in that sense, let's go even a little bit deeper and go back into the silence for a moment. And take this time simply to feel yourself and your personal energy. Is your energy tense this morning? Have you brought in the rush from the day? If you're into astrology, has Mercury retrograde made your week terrible? How's your energy? It had an impact on mine this week, so maybe just release that. And I invite you to conjure up the experience of love now. Feel that. Take into account the experience of love in your own body. And expand that just 6 inches or so outside of yourself. All directions, 6 inches up, down, left, right, behind, in front. Pay special attention to the people in the room and who's next to you. Expand your energy to them. Take it 3 feet out now. Imagine your capacity to tune in not only to your own energy, but to the energy of those around you. Holding the truth in your own body and in the bodies of those around you. Fill the room. Send that energy into the ground, into this beautiful building, into all the nature around us, into this city. Feel it blowing in the wind, filling the earth. Fill this whole blue ball we call home with that energy. Then bless it. Here's attracted to our energy. Expand that energy into the universe. And as we close this exercise, I invite you to sink in a little more and settle into the truth that your personal energy is in alignment with all that is. It allows for all that is. And you are expressing as your authentic contribution to all that is. Take that into your heart as you bring yourselves back to this now moment. Feel your feet, wiggle them if you need to. Hands. Whenever you're ready, you can open your eyes and They look around at the people you just blessed. So that's the experience of spiritual direction. It is between two people and eventually expands out to others. It makes a difference in their lives too. And these are just two examples. I'm going to close early. I don't know. Am I closing early? Kind of? Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to close a little early today because I have another exercise during the meditation that we're going to take a little bit longer. But I want to let you know that Trappist monk Thomas Merton told us this: for each one of us, there is only one thing necessary. It is to fulfill our own destiny according to God's will and to be what God wants us to be. Mm-hmm. So I spent a lot of time talking about what spiritual direction is, but in a nutshell, Thomas Merton got it right there. So I'm going to close right here, and we'll come back into an opportunity for meditation and another exercise. Remaining settled. Our bodies relaxed. Our hearts open. I invite you to find a word, to explore the questions, consider a phrase of what I offer to you in this poem. Lord, said David, since you do not need us, why did you create these two worlds? Reality replied, "O prisoner of time, I was the secret treasure of kindness and generosity, and I wished this treasure to be known. So I created a mirror, its shining face, the heart, its darkened back, the world. The back would please you if you'd never seen the face. Has anyone ever produced a mirror out of mud and straw, yet clean away the mud and straw and a mirror might be revealed? Until the juice ferments a while in the cask, it isn't wine. If you wish your heart to be bright, you must do a little work. My king addressed the soul of my flesh. You returned just as you left. Where are the traces of my gifts? We know that alchemy transforms copper into gold. This son doesn't want a crown or robe from God's grace. He is a hat to 100 bald men, a covering for 10 who were naked. Jesus sat humbly on the back of an ass, my child. How could a zephyr ride an ass? Spirit, find your way in seeking lowness like a stream. Reason, tread the path of selflessness into eternity. Remember God so much that you are forgotten. Let the caller and the called disappear. Be lost in the call. be lost in the call. And so it is.
Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. The light of God surrounds us, the love of God enfolds us, the power of God protects us, the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is